What's up, sports fans? It's your man D back. Speak Your Mind Sports Talk. All right, check it out. I want to talk about the UFC and the UFC culture concerning boxing. For the love of sports, let's talk about it.
Shit happens, niggas want me to talk about it. They love gossip, want me to talk about it. It's all over the gram, so I'ma talk about it. You heard what happened? Niggas want me to talk about it. Shit crazy, niggas want me to talk about it. You heard what happened? Niggas want me to talk about it. Shit happens, niggas want me to talk about it. They love gossip, want me to talk about it. It's all over the gram, so I'ma talk about it. You heard what happened? Niggas want me to talk about it. Shit crazy, niggas want me to talk about it. You heard what happened? Niggas want me to talk about it. Shit happens, niggas want me to talk about it. Fuck how niggas feel, I'ma talk.
So, the UFC, and of course Dana White is the operator of that organization. Basically what Dana White says goes concerning these matchups and these fights and who's going to be fighting who. And much respect to Dana White. I'm a big MMA fan. I love the UFC, and Dana White gives us some very exciting, good fights. The fights that the fan-friendly fights, the fights the fans want. You know, I don't think in any combat sport we always get every fight we want, but Dana White's at a high percentage of delivering the fights that the fans want. And if you guys are paying attention to the culture in the state of boxing, you know, there's been rumors and talks of Dana White moving over into boxing. Now, I don't believe that Dana White's going to be able to take, you know, his strategies that he utilizes in the UFC over to boxing. It won't work there. There's too many sanctioning bodies, way too many belts, and way too many options for the fighters. The fighters in the UFC, they only have one option. They only have whichever class they're in, one belt to chase. And they only have one guy to look to make this happen, and that's Dana White. In boxing, that's totally different. You know, these guys can pick and choose where they like to go. These guys can self-promote and do their own thing and, you know, make their own determinations. Some guys do. Some guys, you know, they make their own decisions. They decide. It's not going to happen like that in the UFC. But when you look at the UFC culture and you compare that to the boxing culture, it's like night and day. You don't have the WBC, the WBA, and all of these sanctioning bodies throwing monkey wrenches into these fights so that the fans can't get what they want. You don't have promoters and quote-unquote advisors that, you know, don't allow certain fights to happen to push their own agenda. It's Dana White or it's nothing. And interestingly enough, you know, with the Kovalev-Canelo fight, we actually witnessed the DAZN holding off the start of that fight because the UFC had a main event going, Jorge Masvidal and Nate Diaz. Ryan Garcia ended his fight in the first round, so it was a long time in between the Ryan Garcia fight and then the main card, the main event on that card, which was Kovalev versus Canelo. Well, it's no secret that they kind of held that off and laid back because of the UFC main event, which was Jorge Masvidal and, you know, Nate Diaz. Now, there are many different ideas and there are many different, you know, opinions about why that is, but clearly enough, I just believe that it was a smart move by DAZN. You don't want to have this competition when mixed martial arts and boxing share a lot of fans. You know, both companies would like the fans to watch both fights. And so you don't want that clash. And while some people believe that the UFC is taking over or this, that, and the third, I don't really believe in that narrative. I just believe that it was a very smart move by DAZN to not allow that clash to happen. So that gives them a higher percentage of the fans watching both fights. And I think that that was a smart move for both companies. I don't think that this was a competitive thing here or a situation where UFC supersedes what boxing is going to do. I think that that was a strategic move and a smart move by DAZN to delay that fight until the finish of the Jorge Masvidal Nate Diaz fight. I don't believe also that Dana White's going to be able to implement that culture that he has in the UFC and boxing. I'm not sure what his strategies are, but we will see when he arrives in boxing as a promoter. But when we talk about the culture of the UFC and the culture of boxing, I would lean toward what we're seeing in the UFC. We're getting the best fights. One of the biggest complaints about the boxing fans is clearly we're not getting the best fights. Now, blame who you want. I don't want to get into the blame game. I think that there's too much going on in boxing, too many issues. The doping agencies, the sanctioning bodies, the multitude of belts, the promoters and managers getting in the way, the networks not willing to work together. These are all reasons that we have for not getting the best fights. You cannot be a dictator in boxing. It just won't work. You're not going to be the only guy. You would have to have companies move out. You would have to have these sanctioning bodies consolidate all belts. You would have to have a lot of things happening to bring that culture over to boxing. So I think that there is no comparison. There's no comparison. When you look at combat sports, and some people don't consider WWE a combat sport because we know a lot of that is staged and acting and so forth, but these guys still compete. It's considered a sport to a lot of people. But look what Vince McMahon is selling. Vince McMahon is selling a show. With boxing and sort of like the Kovalev Canelo, there's a big question mark. Was it a fix? Was it not a fix? We don't have to ask that question in the WWE. We know it's a show. But when you look at the pay-per-view numbers and the level of success that Vince McMahon is having, he's selling a show and he's doing better than both organizations, right? So the culture of these different organizations are the culture where they rest at. You're not going to get WWE culture in the UFC or into boxing or vice versa. So it's interesting to me what strategies he has to move into boxing, to implement better fights, the best fight and the best, the fan-friendly fights, the fights that we all like to see. But it's coming soon, guys. One thing for sure, Dana White has enough backing, money, and power to slide right into boxing and make himself known and make some things happen. Hopefully he will have success because, again, I give Dana White much respect on bringing us the best fights, bringing us the fights that the fans want to see. And I'm just interested in seeing it. I just wanted to talk to you guys about that a little bit and drop a comment. Give me your ideas on what this could mean concerning boxing. And hit that subscribe button and that bell icon so you know when I drop these videos. Hit that like for me so a lot more people can find out about Speak Your Mind Sports Talk. And for the love of sports, let's talk about it. Peace.
Shit happens, niggas want me to talk about it. They love gossip, want me to talk about it. It's all over the gram, so I'ma talk about it. You heard what happened? Niggas want me to talk about it.